Okay, I came here to win. I'm coming for the title, yeah, this is the time. Your friends become your rivals, yeah, I've been on my grind. All I know is been survival, now it's my time to shine. I made it to the finals, I've been going hard, I ain't worried.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Real with Ray podcast. Please like and subscribe to the channel so you can get notifications every time we release one. Please share it with a friend, sister, brother, cousin, and let's get started with this next episode. Let's go! All right, welcome to Real with Ray podcast. I have a very special guest with me today. Realtor, now retired from that, business owner, cancer caretaker, mother, wonderful friend of mine, Miss Sarah Hamric. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Ray.
So we'll start out because me being a realtor, a lot of things that revolve around the show is real estate. You were a realtor for how long?
27 years.
27 years. Okay, so
Half my life.
half of your life. And then decided to step away from the business not too long ago.
Yeah, it's the longest goodbye ever. It was a full year from the first time I told my broker that I was ready to be done.
To actually being done.
Yep.
It's pretty hard to step away from.
Yeah, it was hard. It was really hard for her. We started in the same year. We grew up together. We're good friends. We're willing to have difficult conversations with each other. Yeah, it's hard to be done with something.
So one thing, so when I first told you, I always laugh about this. When I first decided to go into real estate, start pursuing my license, I told you, I said, I'm going to get my real estate license, and I just want to dabble. And you just you gave me like that laugh. I remember that. And I said, what? He said, nothing. You'll figure it out on your own, which then moving forward now, I get it. It's not, for me especially, and I thought you put it great where you said, now after the amount of years you've been into it, you're able to dabble. But starting out, it's not something you want to dabble in. And I thought that was great advice and a great point. So, all right, so going back, what year did you start? What year was that? 27 years ago would have been 97? 97.
Yep, Scott and I moved here the first week in June of 97. He came here for Kellogg, and I took the real estate class, passed my test, and started selling real estate August 1st.
Of 97?
Of 97.
And where did you guys move from?
We moved here from Boulder County, Colorado.
Colorado, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and so, all right, where are you originally from?
I grew up in Wisconsin.
In Wisconsin?
Yep. Scott grew up in Virginia. We met in Arizona. We lived in 4 states in less than the first 2 years of our marriage.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and when we got here, I was like, okay, I'm going to do something where I'm going to generate income so that we're not making decisions solely upon what he's doing.
Awesome. I like that. When you first got into the business, what was some of the difficulties of real estate starting out?
Oh, boy. Well, I wasn't from here, so I didn't know the area. I didn't know the street names, and this was before cell phones. This was maps.
MapQuest, or even before that.
Not even MapQuest. This
Yeah.
was maps. And so I didn't know the area. I didn't know anyone, and I didn't know the business.
That doesn't sound like a good way to go into real estate.
No. And so what my commitment was going in was I'm going to do this for 3 years, and I'm either going to sink or swim, but I'm going to give it a solid try for 3 years and see where it goes. And I was floating my own boat within the first calendar year, so between August 1st and December, I was already making money. And then, yeah, so 98, 97, 98, 99, kind of 2000 is when I had built enough foundation in my business that it kind of took off from there.
And what types of tips or tricks did you have that you think helped you get there? What were some of the things that you were implementing that were helping, especially knowing no one, not knowing the area?
Yep.
I mean, that's really kind of the worst way to go into real estate.
Yeah.
How were you able to overcome that?
Yeah, so back in the day, there used to be floor calls. So if you were in the office, and at Remax it was a little different. You didn't have assigned floor time. Literally, if a floor call came in, so a generic call, somebody who had a real estate question, didn't have a realtor, but knew they wanted to call Remax to get the answer to that question, the person at the front desk would answer that call, find out that it was like a floor call, and they would put it out over the PA system, floor call line 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever, and whoever had the fastest trigger finger got that call. And I learned very quickly that, well, you had to be at the office. It's different now. Real estate's so much different now. But then you had to be at the office because that's where the business was happening. And so they started picking up the calls at 8:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday. I feel like on Saturday they didn't pick them up till 9, from 9 to noon. And if I was not actively showing a house or doing something outside of the office that was real estate related, I was in the office to pick up floor calls. And my business really came from floor calls. And then I would tell people when I was in real estate that the commission I'm making today from selling you a house, it's not that it doesn't have meaning for me, because obviously it does. It's income. But doing such a good job for you means that you're going to refer every coworker, family member, friend, and the 25 deals I could do over the coming years from direct referrals from you. That's where I build my business. And so it was bringing all of yourself to every transaction and doing the best job you could for those people so that they would refer people to you.
That's awesome.
Referrals are the best way, in my opinion, to do real estate.
I agree with that.
Because then you're not having to convince the people that you're good at what you do. They've already been told that by a family member or a friend or a coworker, and so they know that they want to work with you, and then you just have to show up and do the job.
My buddy Kevin King always talks about the long game. It's the long game, you know.
Yeah, and it is the long game. Like, you can't. What I've experienced in the 27 years I was in the game is that people get into the business because they think it's going to be a great way to make money quickly and a high volume of money. And I saw it hundreds of times. People get in, but they didn't realize, like, you have to put in the time. Yeah. It's not going to happen for you automatically or quickly. It's a little bit different, like for someone like you getting in the business because you're not from here originally, but you've lived here long enough and you know people. So it was a bit different for you. Like, you would have had an advantage getting into the business that I didn't have. But yeah, you have to show up day after day, week after week, month after month, and you just have to stay in the game.
That's good. And so I remember you giving me some advice when I first started in real estate. So you share that advice. Do you remember the advice you gave me?
I don't.
Well, first, what to do with my money.
Because
of those.
Oh, yeah.
And you said, a few things for new realtors.
Oh, yeah.
Can you share that advice?
Yeah. So, and I've seen this happen countless times. Agents get in the business and they, for whatever reason, they get a great deal, right? Like, they put together some, like, unforeseen deal and it's a huge commission. 15 grand, 20 grand, whatever it is. And you're happy for them, right? Like, that's great. But the mistake that I would see agents make is the next thing you'd see them is driving some new car. And it might have been a used car, but a new car to them. But you'd see them driving a different vehicle, and I've never, like, you need to save your money. You need to save your money. You need to pay yourself first. You need to fully fund your SEP every single year. I can remember a year when Scott and I hadn't planned properly. It was the year that my business took a quantum leap. It was 2000, and my accountant called me, and she goes, "Are you sitting down?" And I was like, "Should I be?" And she's like, "Yeah, I think so." And between what I owed and the quarterlies, because you have to pay what you owe, you have to pay your quarterlies and fully fund your SEP all in the month of April, and we didn't have it. And we actually did a short-term loan from Scott's parents because it was that important to me to fully fund my SEP. Like, I was never going to not fully fund my SEP, which is your self-employment pension. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I see a lot of agents that I have seen and observed that they're just not properly managing their own personal finances. And that's not just real estate agents, but I would see that selling people houses too, right? Like people buying more house than they should.
Yeah.
I think that living conservatively financially is important from the get-go because it sets you up to be in a different financial position later.
And one thing we've talked about before, I've never had a car payment in my life. It's a way that I have saved. I did the math. I figure 20 years old, typically someone buys a car, with your full coverage insurance, because I always went PLPD for a long time because I could, and then not having a car payment, around $500 a month. Well, now I'm 40, so every year that's about $6,000 a year. Times that by 20 years is $120,000. So we always laugh about my hoopties and talk about dogs on here soon, but dropping off my dog Nalu and having different rides, and so I'm big on that. And that was great advice that you gave me, because having a different type of income prior to then having income where it's coming commission based.
Well, and the things people don't think about, like you make a $10,000 commission, but if you're in the 25% tax bracket, potentially $2,500 of that is taxes, and there's others. I mean, you're lucky if half of that stays in your bank account. But what I would see is people weren't thinking about what's happening in 6 months or in April, and they're spending the money like it's all theirs, and that's just a terrible thing.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, my strategy has been reinvesting it in real estate. So I'm making money from real estate, reinvesting it in real estate to keep that, going. That's my bank account. Tell me about, difference, we're talking about maps and technology. So, things have changed so much in the industry with the new technology. Tell me a little bit about you're talking about doing it in the business then. You're doing business up to a year ago. Like, how much has it changed with technology?
It's so different. So when I first started, we didn't even all have computers at our desks. So we had a computer back by the copy machine that we all shared. And that would be pure chaos now, right? Like, I don't even know how, but it worked because you would only get on the computer for a little bit. The Homes magazine, which doesn't even exist anymore. People from the area know what that is, but it was a publication that came out every 2 weeks. There was one for Battle Creek and one for Kalamazoo. It was at every grocery store, gas station. I mean, people went to the grocery store and left with a Homes magazine. And that's how they would look to see what was active, what was available. So the information was slow to get to the public. Because you might have had a house listed, you would time it so that you would list the house as the Homes magazine came out, or, so as agents, we kind of owned the information 27 years ago. Now, the MLS it has a relationship with all of the internet sites. So Zillow, Homes.com, Remax.com, EXP.com, whatever it is. When you list a house, it's public information within an hour, and people are seeing. So as agents, you used to see a house get listed and you'd call your buyer and say, hey, this is a great house, I think we should go see it. You would know about it before your buyer would. Now, as an agent, you're doing 12 things in your day, and you have buyers blowing up your phone saying, hey, this house just got listed on whatever, 444 Orchard, and I want to go see it right now. And you're like, okay, well, hang on, let me figure out my day and see, it's, everything is much more immediate in the business now. Buyers want to see a house an hour ago. And so it's a completely different business, in my opinion. Everything's done online. People are clicking on Zillow that they want to see a house. They think they're looking at it with the listing agent. They're looking at it with an agent who bought that lead, who doesn't know anything about that house. I had an occasion just recently where some people were interested in vacant land. They had clicked on Zillow, looked at it with this agent, were trying to negotiate it with this agent, reached out to me because they were actually reached out to my husband, who put them in contact with me. And I was able to kind of figure it out for him. And I believe that agent was so new in the business, they hadn't closed a transaction. And everybody has to start somewhere. I'm empathetic to that. I was that person in 1997. But that agent was in way over their head to be able to help these buyers with this transaction. And those buyers thought they were looking at it with the agent that had it listed, at least initially. They had figured it out, but yeah. So it's really different. There's a lot of, I did a lot of business with corporate people that were coming in. And when I started in the business and you sold somebody a house that was coming in corporately, you made the whole commission. The last I knew, if you were working with somebody, and I won't even name the corporation, but they have relationships with relocation companies, you'd close a transaction and have to pay 45% of your commission to the relocation company. And it's like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I just did all this work and I made the money I'd make for selling a house half that price. That was very disenchanting to me.
Where do you see the industry going with so many changes? What are some, if you had to guess or make a prediction in the next 5 or 10 years, what do you think is in the future for the real estate industry?
Well, I think there's been a lot of change, like, since I started.
Yeah.
I feel like there's always change in real estate. What I see more is it's sort of cyclical. Like, when the business is slow and difficult, agents get out of the business. When there's an uptick in the business, people get in because they think it's going to be easy to make a lot of money. And then there's going to be the steady Eddie people that have stayed in through thick and thin, through ups and downs. I think there's going to be ongoing, technology is never going away. I think it's brought a lot of really positive things. I think being able to open a key box with my cell phone is fantastic. Being able to know who was in a house based on an app that I have on my phone is great because I can keep track of it. Like, if I've got a hot listing and 23 people showed it, I can be like, oh yeah, that's right, you showed it yesterday or whatever. I had an occasion a couple years ago where I had a really good listing and I had an agent reach out to me and she let me know she's going to be writing an offer. And I was like, but you haven't shown the house. And then come to find out, like, she was writing an offer for people that had looked at the house with someone else, and that becomes a whole thing. But technology helps you sort some of that stuff out so you can keep people straight. I think that the agents that aren't willing to embrace the technology are going to have a very difficult time. I think the younger people that are willing to play the long game and stay in it for a long time and embrace all of the technology at the same time, I think that they're going to do okay. What I'd like to see is I'd like to see people committing to it as a career and staying in it for a long period of time. Those are the agents that really learn the business and really care about their clients. And those are the agents that I always liked to do a transaction with. The people that are in it for the fast commission are doing a huge disservice to the people buying and selling, and that's I don't think that's ever going to go away, but those agents, I never felt good about working with those agents because they weren't taking care of the people. And at the end of the day, this is a people business, and you've got to take care of the people.
One thing that I like about the technology piece of it, getting into it, is the documents, the different apps for that, because I can't imagine, I'm terrible about keeping track of papers and filing them.
Oh, yeah.
If it was still filing, by that would be a bad news bears for me for sure. So,
and I think it's an interesting point that you bring up, because you used to have a paper file. Like, you would write a contract on paper with pen, sit down with your buyers, they'd sign it, then you'd hand deliver it to the listing agent, and then you had to keep a paper file. Like, to my knowledge, at RE/MAX, they still keep a paper file.
I'm thankful for that piece. And I mean, I've got transaction, I've had transactions where I've not even met the agents, it's all done through, an app, and go back and forth. And if we don't close at the same place, we never even physically see one another. So it's pretty crazy way to do business.
I feel like that's, the business is losing something in that when the agents don't know each other, and don't have face-to-face conversations. I think that's a loss for the industry.
I think that's really speaks volumes for everything, social media. Like, you have friends, but you don't actually see them. And so every area of life, it's just kind of infiltrated the real estate business as well. So when we're talking about building relationships with clients, what are some strategies for building those lasting relationships with clients? What do you think are things that, when at Burn, they would talk about raving fans. Raving fan would be someone who you did business with. They appreciated the business so much and what they got from you that they would refer other people. What are some things that you think helped you build those relationships that would build those referrals and build that long business?
I think it was showing up every day and just bringing your best, and taking care of the people and really listening to them and helping them solve problems, and but genuinely caring about them and helping them make a good decision. I can't tell you the number of times I'd walk into a house and be like, 5 minutes I'd be in the house and be like, this isn't it, guys. And I've talked people out of buying houses a lot. Because I knew, this house isn't structurally sound. It's going to be a problem over time. Because purchasing a house is the first expense. Then you have to take care of the house, and it's expensive. So doing a good job for people, thanking them for their business, staying in contact with them. I used to keep track of people's birthdays, call them up on their birthday, wish them a happy birthday, send them a card on the anniversary of the purchase or sale of their home. I think now it's different because social media plays such a huge part. I think people have an understanding that social media is powerful, but I think that they don't utilize it in the way they should. Social media, because of being a business owner, social media is super important because people make decisions about you based on your social media. And I'm not saying if you don't want anything to do with social media, I understand that. But I do think that having a positive presence on social media means something to the public. So my social media is purely positive, right? I'm not gonna be political on social media. I'm not gonna do incendiary things on social media. I'm gonna post things about my son playing tennis. You got to keep it positive because people are watching.
Definitely, that's good. Those are good tips. Some real estate myths. Did you ever have real estate myths that you felt like, or people would think certain things about being a realtor, about real estate that were untrue?
Actually, the one that cracks me up that I actually think is true is, and I remember this specifically, there was an agent in our office that was really upset about some transaction. I don't remember the details of that transaction, but this individual was super upset and was saying, they just think we're used car salespeople. And I was like, well, it's because that's the way a lot of people are conducting their business. You got to care about you got to play the long game, and you got to care about your people. One of the things I loved about 27 years in the business is I sold houses to the children of people I'd sold houses to before, or their nieces and nephews, or, I don't think I ever had the occasion of selling something. I wasn't in it long enough to sell something to a grandchild. But unfortunately, this is a business where there's a volume of people that aren't doing it the right way, and there's a volume of people doing it the right way. But the people that aren't doing it the right way create problems for those that are doing it the right way, and that's unfortunate. And that was there recently. There was a huge lawsuit that everybody who's in touch with real estate knows about, and that lawsuit came from agents that were doing it the wrong way.
And everybody pays.
Everybody pays.
But and I've joked about this in a way because I'm new enough in it where people ask me about the differences. I'm like, I'm just learning how the other way to do it that is easy for me to adapt to the new way, and you got to be adaptive anyways. And I joke that the personal training is so much like being a realtor. It's almost the same job as far as the same things. What my approach with people, my approach with waking up every day and trying to eat, sleep, breathe, live that, that lifestyle of a realtor in a way. I mean, first thing I wake up, my systematically, I do the same things every day and get into a routine for those things. And then the same way that I serve my clients, same way I did with personal training. And it's funny.
It's a people business.
It is a people business, 100%. Not a house business. It's
No.
It's not the product. It's the people.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, moving on from that. So, some point in you being a realtor, at the same time, you acquired a business, Dog Zone.
Mm-hmm.
So, tell me about how did that come about?
I had been a client at Dog Zone is a dog daycare training and grooming facility. It's been in business for 29 years here in Battle Creek. The individual who started the business is a wonderful human being who loves dogs, and she did a great job with the business for a very long time. She and I had known each other for a very long time, and I knew that individual was maybe in a position to want to move on and do something else. And so I approached her and just said, Scott and I'd be interested in buying the business if you ever thought you'd want to sell it. So from that first conversation to us closing on the business was a full year. Seems to be a trend with me. And when I purchased the business, really, they say that you don't bet on the horse, you bet on the jockey. And there is a trainer who had worked there since she was in high school. She's worked there for 20 plus years. She has her degree in animal behavioral psychology. And that was the individual. I personally would have no business owning a dog zone, a dog business, if I didn't have a dog person or people there. I know the people end of the business, but I didn't know the dog end of the business. I know a lot more now, 5 years later, than I did when I purchased it. But really what my vision was to be a steward of the business and to help grow the business and to make it, to influence it as positively as I could, to make it a happy, fun place to work, to have a small but loyal team of employees. I don't like drama. I have 8 employees. We don't have any drama in the building. I think that if those employees came here, they would tell you that they feel valued by Scott and I, that we are providing them a great place to work. It's just been, I kind of saw it as an experiment to see if I could influence the business in a positive manner, and kind of build a culture that I wanted to. So,
How do you feel like that's going?
So we just had our 5-year anniversary. We didn't do any big celebration or anything, but 3 of the employees, the trainers, they did a Sarah Appreciation Day, and I did not anticipate that. I didn't see it coming. They did it a couple of weeks before the 5th anniversary. They knew that the anniversary was coming up, and it was really nice.
That's
it was
awesome.
really nice. It's been fun to be able to positively impact employees' lives.
That's awesome. What were some of the biggest challenges with taking on this business? Which is funny, another pattern for you is going into a business where you weren't from the area, didn't know anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You go and buy a business where you haven't trained dogs before or been a dog groomer or anything like that. So what were some of the challenges when you first purchased this business going into this, and how did you overcome them?
So I had never been an employer before, so that was a challenge, right? Learning how to be an employer, learning how to manage people in a positive way, learning the communication with the clients is very similar to the communication with clients in real estate. I have always believed that you need to communicate with people as directly as possible, and to get out in front of issues. So in real estate, I was always taught to begin with the end in mind in a transaction, like see yourself at the closing table. It's a smooth closing. Everyone's happy. The buyers like the sellers and the sellers like the buyers, and everyone feels good about it. I feel the same way with the dog business, is to try and foresee what might come up that would be a problem and get out in front of it. If I can communicate an issue, if I can anticipate and communicate an issue with the clients at Dog Zone, it's much better than if I'm behind the 8 ball and we're communicating after the fact. It's been fun. It's been challenging, but fun.
That's awesome. How do you approach, like, if you scaling up the business, like, how did you go about that? What were some of your strategies for growing the business and to scaling it up from where it was when you first bought it to where it is now?
Sure. So when we bought the business, I think things were horrifically underpriced. And we have the benefit of having Kalamazoo not far away and Marshall not far away. And both of those cities have daycares and training and grooming. And so there's a tremendous amount of information out there that you can look at. So we took price increases, and now we are comparable and yet still less expensive than Marshall or Kalamazoo. I think that we bring a different flavor because we have the training component. Often you don't have the training and the daycare in the same facility. Those are separate facilities or separate businesses. Because we have it all together, we have more knowledge about the dogs that are with us every day, but we've also probably trained 75 to 80% of the daycare dogs. So we also have more control of those dogs. Yeah.
It's been good.
It's been good.
What's been the most unexpected lesson that you've learned about being an employer and your role in leadership?
I'm slow to hire.
Slow to hire?
I'm slow to hire.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, yeah. You also, you have to anticipate and get out in front of problems. Likewise, I like to be slow to hire.
When out of your employees, how many are were there originally when you first bought the place compared to now? How many people have you hired out of the 8?
So one employee had been with the business for a very long time, and she had left the business a few years before we bought it. She kind of came back and stuck her toe in the water, and came back and worked like a morning a week, and then it was 2 mornings a week, and she's now back full time. She had to see it to believe it, to know that she wanted to come back. So there were let me see, 5 of the 8 were, 4 of the 8 were part of the business when we bought it. 1 came back to the business, and then 3 people are new since we bought the business. But the least amount of time anybody's worked for me right now is 2.5 years. And everybody on my staff makes a living wage or greater, which I'm very proud of.
So tell me about a typical day at Dog Zone. What is it like there? It always amazes me when we bring our dog there. You guys knew all the dogs' names. For sure knew the dogs' names. Most of the people's names. Different people sometimes dropping off the dogs. The typical day at Dog Zone look like?
Sure. So in the morning, one of the things we discovered through COVID is that we are safer and more efficient for the dogs by not having the people come into the building anymore. So I actually have that permanently on the front door, no employees only inside. So we come out into the parking lot and get the dogs and then take them back to the play floors. So in the morning, it's a lot of back and forth. In fact, this morning I've got 4,000 steps, and those are all 98% of those 4,000 steps are between the front of the building and the back of the building at Dog Zone, me just going back and forth and back and forth. So we bring the dogs into the building. They immediately go out to the yards, because even if a dog's been on a 5-mile run and pottied at home, it's going to potty again when it gets to Dog Zone. So they go outside. They're immediately on the play floors from the time they get dropped off. So the mornings are just very busy intaking the dogs. And then we put their leashes in cubbies and write them on the board. And, yeah. And then my mornings, I do a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls. I do all of the initial phone calls for the intakes, like when we're bringing a dog in for training or daycare. We don't actually take grooming dogs. Like if we're so busy grooming the daycare dogs, grooming is really a service to the daycare dogs, that we don't, like if somebody calls up and is like, yeah, I need to get my dog groomed, if they're not part of Dog Zone, we don't groom their dog. We'll refer them on to other businesses that we know have the capacity and are, can take them in. But and that's been kind of a nice thing because we also know all the dogs that we're grooming. And like dogs aren't always well behaved when they get groomed. So usually if somebody's got a 6-year-old doodle that they're looking for a groomer, it's because their dog is ill behaved.
Yeah.
And got kicked out of the last groomer.
How many dogs on a daily does Dog Zone see?
We average over 50 dogs a day through the building. So on the daycare side, we probably, our average is between 40 and 45 dogs a day in daycare. The groomers, I have 3 groomers. They probably groom 8 to 10 dogs in a day, and then whatever training dogs that we have. So this week we have 4 training dogs. Last week we had 6. So 50 is actually probably on the low side. We probably average closer to 60 dogs a day through the building.
Man, I can't imagine keeping them straight. I know nothing about dogs. We talk about that. I always love the advice of when we had our dog, and it was you had to remind me quite a few times that dogs are not humans. And so I was trying to turn my dog into a human.
Yes, you were.
But it's I know how. I think it's amazing how you're able to learn each dog's personality, connect with them, and then help train them, and they become better dogs. Before we had gotten our dog, and this was really my real first puppy, dog, family pet, and I wanted our dog to have its full potential as our pet, as our family pet. And so we had talked about that. And so it's amazing to me how the training and how, I make this joke all the time that our dog is so well trained by Dog Zone. It's smarter than most of my kids. So not really. But I mean, she's such a smart dog, and she almost knows how to manipulate us in a way with her little eyes. And dogs do, but she's very intelligent. But if she didn't get the training, I truly feel we are doing a disservice to her and our family for really her not reaching her potential and how good of a dog she can be. So that's our own personal story. And we thank you for all you've done for our dog, and she's wonderful. And
that was kind of an interesting circumstance.
It was
the way that all worked out, but we were happy to have helped with Nalu.
The background story was my wife was diagnosed with cancer 4 days after we brought this puppy in, and we had talked with you a little bit about it before getting her, and then you called me up and said, "Hey, I can't take away cancer, but I can give you the gift of having a well-trained dog." And you told me it was your mission to have her be the most well-trained dog in Calhoun County, and you guys did so much. I mean, I remember before her training, me and my oldest daughter, we decided we wanted to take her for a walk, and it was a mess. She was wrapped around our legs. We're tripping. We didn't make it to the end of the street, and we're like, time to go back. And then, it was like 2 days there with you guys, came out, and she was walking right on the left, and, and we could take her for a walk. It's just really tremendous how fast, too. And I'm sure it's not like that all the time, but it was really, and the things, the tips. I think that the important thing, or one thing that I didn't realize wasn't so much the dog that needed to be trained. It was us as the owners who needed to be trained on how to have a dog and to, be a better dog owner. So
someday I have a vision that we'll have a class that people come to when they're thinking about getting a dog.
That'd be good.
And have the people go through the class, actually have them handle some dogs that have had training and handle dogs that haven't had training.
Oh, that'd be good.
So that they can see that difference and then also be able to influence what kind of dog that they get. Because people get dogs because their friend had this dog, or their family member, or they had a dog when they were a kid, or they feel bad for the dog. The best thing people can do is to get a dog that's going to fit into their lifestyle, like whatever they're, if somebody's a marathon runner, then they better have a dog who can put the miles in with them. If somebody likes to be on the couch reading a book all day, then they better have a dog who's willing to curl up next to him on the couch.
That's good.
I don't think people think about their lifestyle when they're choosing their dog as much as they should.
Yeah. So really, it's hard to say one breed or another is what you recommend. It's more people and the dog, for them.
Yeah, and there's lots of good dogs and lots of good breeds. That's not really the issue, and I'm not opposed to any breed. I think that's a fallacy, but I do think that there are breeds that some people have no business having. I took a call from a woman yesterday who has a cane corso, which a cane corso is a lot of dog. And this dog was 2 years old, and it's in its third home. And what I wanted to say to that woman is, I think you should take the dog back to the breeder, because you have just been saddled with 10 years of a huge problem.
That's good. What factors, when you're considering taking a dog into the daycare, because I know you guys will have them come in and you'll put them through some training or check them out. What are some factors that you guys take in before you accept a dog into your training into the daycare?
Sure. I want to go back to cane corso real quick. I'm not saying they're bad dogs, but you better have some dog skills and know how to interact with a dog if you're going to have a breed like that. So I do think that there are people that should have them, but I think the percentage of people that should have them is probably quite small. When we bring a dog into daycare, we evaluate them. And what you want, people think of daycare as a way to socialize their dog. I would say that's true when the dogs are puppies, because puppies do learn how to socialize with other dogs at daycare because they're young and they're learning and they're processing, and the older dogs are teaching them things and they're learning from them. It is not a good vehicle for a 3-year-old dog who's never been in daycare to come in and get socialized. It doesn't work that way. That dog is already an adult. It's already set in its ways. When puppies come to us, they grew up with us. It's home away from home, and it's Disney World, and it's great. There are some dogs that come to us older that do work out in daycare. On a percentage basis, it's quite low. Once your dog gets past 1 year of age, the likelihood of a dog passing an evaluation for daycare is probably 1 in 4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the first thing someone calls, they're interested in daycare, it gets written down on a sheet. I call them back. I spend 15 to 20 minutes on the phone with them, talking to them about what daycare is with us, how it's different. We don't operate as a drop-in service. We have dogs come on a scheduled day on the same day or days every week, because we treat each day like its own preschool or kindergarten class. The dogs all form friendships. They know each other. And so, so like if we operated in a drop-in service and somebody was going to the dentist and they need to bring their dog, that dog comes into that group and it's like stranger danger. That dog doesn't know the group doesn't know them, and it sets the whole group off tilt. So dogs come on scheduled days, same day every week, day or days. We don't have dogs come on consecutive days because they get overtired and they get grumpy with each other. So if they come multiple days, like we'll have dogs come Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, any combination of 2 other days. But so I spend about 20 minutes on the phone with them, talking to them about what daycare is, what it looks like. I talk to them about kennel cough. Kennel cough gets a bad name in public. People board their dog somewhere, it comes home with kennel cough, they're mad at the facility. I think that's unfair. Kennel cough is a canine cold. It's a highly contagious airborne virus. It's like trying to hold back the tide. If a dog, it's like kids going to kindergarten. They all share bugs, right? So it's not uncommon for a dog coming into our population to get a goopy eye, a runny nose, or a cough. If we actually have kennel cough in the population, I'm very transparent about it. I put it on social media. We talk to every owner at drop-off. So I talk, this is, again, beginning with the end in mind, right? That initial phone call I do, I cover a lot of the issues that might be problems down the road. If I've talked to them about kennel cough before their dog ever comes to my building, then it's not an issue, right? Because they're aware of it. They're aware their dog might get a cold. It's no big deal. So I talk to them, then I send them paperwork. They fill that paperwork out, get it back to us along with the vaccination records, and then the evaluation day is $50. When a dog comes for its evaluation day, this is a long answer for your question. We're looking for a dog to be very neutral. A neutral dog is like, hey, I want to be your friend. Oh, you don't want to be my friend? That's okay. They'll go over to the next dog and be like, hey, I want to be your friend. That's a neutral dog. A neutral dog is happy to be friends with the other dogs, but not unhappy if somebody doesn't want to be their friend. So we're looking for dogs to be very neutral and to be responsive. Like if a dog says, yeah, I don't want to be your friend, that dog needs to be willing to be like, okay, and move on. Yeah. We have a lot of we split the dogs into 2 groups. So we have 20 plus dogs in a play group per day. And they get along swimmingly well because we know them. We've evaluated them. 80% of them we've trained. It's a unique environment because we have training on site and we have that depth of knowledge.
It's amazing. What is the most valuable lesson that you have learned since owning this business about dogs or about people or people and dogs? What's the most valuable lesson you've learned since taking on this business, a business that you didn't know much about prior? Moving forward, looking back, what is the most valuable lesson you've learned from this?
Well, that's a good question. I will say the people that, I don't know that this is the most valuable lesson, but it's certainly one thing I've learned. The people that understand that their dog is a dog and not a human, and I'm not saying you can't love your dog and do things for your dog, but a dog prefers to be treated like a dog. They like to be a dog. They don't want to be a human. And so the people that do the best with their dogs know that they're dogs and treat them like dogs, love them, but treat them like dogs. I will tell you that dogs are happiest when they have rules in life. I tell people if you can think of your dog like a toddler, it will set you up for success. You would never let a toddler run loose and rampant in your house doing whatever they wanted to all day long. You just wouldn't do that because CPS would show up, right?
Right.
Nor should you do that with a dog. And dogs are happier. We see it all the time when dogs come to us for training and they're a hot mess. And when they start learning rules, we can see them like they're happier now that they have rules and structure and things. Yeah. The most important thing I've learned, be slow to hire.
Be slow to hire. So that's good for any business owner. So one other thing that we have in common too, with that I think we really connected on was we both have been caretakers for our spouses through a cancer battle. So I was, thinking about questions to ask you and talk about today, and you've been through it 4 or 5 times cancer.
8.
8. Wow. I guess
2005, 7, 9, 11, 14, 16, 17, and 22.
And what I know it's a rare type of cancer that your husband Scott has experienced.
He has, yep. So the tumor has been called a parachordoma. It was also called a myoepithelial tumor for a period of time. He is a patient at Mayo. It was first removed at Bronson and Kalamazoo in 2005. That surgeon immediately knew that it was not a cyst and it was a tumor. He was referred to the University of Michigan to their cancer center. He had a surgery there in 2007. And then in 2009, they were recommending a ray amputation, which is from your fingertips all the way back to the wrist of his index and middle fingers. And we got a second opinion at Mayo and a third opinion at the University of Chicago. And then in 2009, chose to seek treatment at Mayo. And he's been a patient at Mayo ever since. And we were told at Mayo by his orthopedic oncologist, a doctor named Frank Sim, who's now retired, but he's a legend in the he's a legend in the field. We were told by him in 2009 that there were less than 100 documented cases of Scott's tumor ever in the world. And that number may be different now. I mean, maybe it's 200. I don't know. But yeah, it's rare.
And so, so you've been the caretaker for much of that. Tell me a little bit about that. Just from the first time when you guys first got diagnosed, what that was like. And your son was how old that first time?
2005 was before Jay. Jay was born in
Jay.
Yep.
Wow.
Jay was born in 2008. So 2005, I think in 2005 nobody was using the word cancer, even though he was referred to the cancer center at Michigan. Nobody used the word cancer, and so I think
That's interesting.
naively, both of us just thought it was this rare tumor, but it wasn't cancer, which is weird. Yeah. So then he had a surgery at Michigan in 2007 when I was pregnant with Jay, and he was actually working in Paris, France at the time. And we'd taken that job with Kellogg. We had made it clear that if he needed treatment, he was going to come back to the States for that, because that was our comfort level. The question is, what's it like to be the caregiver? It's hard. It's hard.
What were some of the biggest challenges you feel like experienced?
Yeah. So when Jay was 18 months old is when Scott's fingers got amputated. And I think naively we thought he was just going to have that amputation surgery and, life would move on. He ended up getting an infection in his hand. So his amputation surgery was the 10th of September in 2009. And he had multiple surgeries after that amputation surgery. And they were putting on an engineered skin graft. It had bovine cells in it, and they were putting on this engineered skin graft because they didn't have enough skin in his hand to close the wound. And so he'd gone back into the OR multiple times over, like every couple of weeks he'd have to go back, and they were putting on these layers of skin graft, and it got infected, and it failed the week of Thanksgiving that year. And he ended up I thought he was going to have his hand amputated that day. His hand turned black. It didn't smell good. He noticed on Saturday night that there was like a dark spot in it, and he took a picture with his cell phone. And then Sunday night, we ended up on the phone. Monday night, Sunday night. I can't remember now. That's funny. But we ended up on the phone with the hand surgeon. The hand surgeon was like, "Well, let's see." And then it was changing rapidly. And so then they were like, "Yeah, we think you need to come over here." And initially they were like, "We're not going to put you on any antibiotic or anything because we want to get it here and we want to test it and whatever." Well, then that phone conversation took place after Jay had gone to bed, and we didn't want to get an 18-month-old out of bed in the middle of the night to take him to his caregiver's house. We thought that would be really disorienting. So we waited until morning, and Scott took a picture of his hand and sent it to the surgeon, who immediately called Scott's cell phone and said, "Let me know what Walgreens you want me to call a script into," because they wanted him to start taking something immediately. It looked that bad. And so we dropped Jay off at his sitters and went to the Walgreens on Gull Road. And when we were walking out, Scott was going to drive, and I was like, "No, I'll drive," because Scott will go 9 miles per hour over the speed limit. And I think otherwise. Anyway, I made the drive to Mayo in about 6 hours that day, and it's 500 miles. And I figured if I got pulled over, all I was going to have to do is take Scott's hand and show it to the officer and be like, "We need to get to Mayo," and I probably would have had an escort. And when we got there that day, because it's a teaching hospital, there were conservatively probably 30 people in the room because there were residents that wanted to see it. And thankfully, the infection didn't go that deep, and they did not have to amputate his hand. But he did end up hospitalized for about 10 days at that time. I'm rambling on. The hardest thing about being a caregiver has been the fact that we've had to raise a child through this experience. And trying to keep life as normal for Jay as we could throughout the experience has always been the challenge. And we've done a damn good job of that. And I know that because Jay's a really well-balanced kid. I think he's super empathetic to things. His sensibility around empathy towards other people is off the chart for a 16-year-old kid. And I think it's because of the experiences he's had. He always went to Mayo with us. For him, it was until he was 6 years old. Until he was 6 years old, going to Mayo was fun for him because it meant hotels and swimming pools, and we'd stop at Wisconsin Dells, and take him to Kalahari, and it was going to restaurants where your food got delivered by a train, and it was all good things. And it was when he was 6 years old that he started to understand, like, oh, this is not good. And I remember being in the exam room waiting for the surgeons to come for a checkup when Jay was 6. And he came over to me and he said that he wanted to go for a walk. And it was that day when Jay put it together that cancer was not a good thing. Mm-hmm. And it was more than hotels and swimming pools and fun times. And he doesn't have to go with us anymore, but he doesn't like to go.
No.
And if he does go with us, he chooses not to go to the clinic, because you see things there that you can't unsee. And so he still goes with us, but he'll choose to stay in the hotel room or the house we've rented or whatever it is, because it's stressful for him. It's stressful.
It is very stressful.
Yeah.
How did you balance your responsibilities for taking care of Scott, but also being a mom, being a realtor at that time, all of life's responsibilities and managing being a caretaker? It's a lot. I mean, I know from my personal experience, it was a lot.
I knew I'd cry today. And I know that you know this story, but this hasn't come up, is that in 2014, my parents were also hit by a drunk driver. And so in 2014, I became a caregiver for my parents as well. My parents were not killed by the drunk driver, but they were effectively taken from us by the drunk driver. My mom's neck was broken in 2 places, or 3 places. Her sternum was broken in 2 places, but the trauma to her brain threw her into a vascular dementia. And so balancing all of this has been really hard. I've had days when I felt like I did a pretty good job, and I've had days when I felt like I really fell short. One of the things that was extremely helpful to our family is Jay went to a small Montessori school for 2 years of preschool, and then from kindergarten through 6th grade. And having him in that environment was incredibly important, because I knew that he was in a small facility where the adults that were interacting with him knew enough about what was going on in our lives that if Jay was having an off day, Jay was going to get to go play the piano or do something different. Like it wasn't going to matter. Balancing it all has been it's been a lot. You just do it. You get up every day and you put one foot in front of the other and you do the best you can in that day. And then you do it again the next day. And you keep doing it. I will say I think everybody should go to therapy. I've been through a lot of therapy. It helps. I think the world would be a happier place if everyone went to therapy on a regular basis. It's part of the reason why I decided to retire from real estate. Like, I've juggled too many balls for too long, and I needed a break. I needed less on my plate. Scott had a major surgery in January of 22. He had a 13-hour surgery. They removed tumor from his arm. There's no longer enough skin to close a wound on his arm. So they did what's called a free flap, and they took a part of his quadricep muscle and attached that to his arm. I'm pretty sure you've seen it. Mm-hmm. He keeps it covered for the most part because it's just a lot for people to see. But so now we're getting close to 3 years since he's had any medical intervention. This year when we went in March, they let us know for the first time in 19 years that he doesn't have to go back for a checkup for a year.
Wow.
And that sounds great, and people congratulate you about that. and it's nice. But it's also because if it comes back again, they're going to push him hard for a below the elbow amputation. And so that's just another, like that's the first time they recommended a below the elbow amputation was in 2011. And so it's, you know, that's just out there. It's hanging out there for a long time. And in some ways, I think if you were to like get in a car accident and lose your arm, that would be horrifically traumatic, but it would be over. I feel like this is like the slow roll towards that. Anyway, I've done the best I could, balancing it all. I've had some good days, and I've had some days where I fell short. It's nothing that you would choose, but when cancer comes knocking on your door, it doesn't leave.
Yeah.
People get all excited when you're not dealing with it or when you're in remission, but when you've lived it.
Value every day differently.
Yeah. It's made us better people.
Yeah.
Scott and I are better people because of it.
Yeah.
For sure. I know that without question.
Yeah.
We're better people. We're better parents. Yeah. I wouldn't choose it.
No.
But we're better people for it.
I say the same. I didn't realize how much I took my wife for granted, took life for granted. Even taking for granted, I think one of the hard things for me was imagining my girls growing up without a mother. You know, they were 7, 3, and 1 when Tiff got sick. And I just couldn't wrap my mind around my children not having a mother. And then me being responsible for raising them as a father and trying to compensate for that. And I knew I wasn't enough, you know. And I'm so thankful. And I joke now when people ask how Tiff's doing, I say, well, we bicker and fight now. I'm like, what do you mean by that? We don't, I take her for granted again,
Yeah.
But it's still I know you guys we were going up every 6 months. Was that what it was? You guys would go to Mayo and, the stress leading up to it, knowing there's that trip, waiting for the results, Tiff, hers was a blood cancer. So every time she gets blood work, I get more freaked out than she does. I know she gets blood work. I'm watching the app, and I usually tell her what her blood results were. They're great. They're good, but it's, I think there's that part of being the caretaker. And we've said too that I have said this, that I'm nowhere near as strong as Tiff was for that. I think that it was funny at the time when Tiff was in the hospital, she had said, we had a routine with the girls. I'm balancing the girls and going and seeing her. There's no way I could have had a job, at that time. There's just no way. But she was like, man, I couldn't do it. I'm as far as like taking care of the girls. And I'm like, what? I couldn't do what you're doing, and I just believe God had God can take all bad things and make them into good if you allow them to. And I definitely feel, I don't know that I was a very empathetic person before the cancer like I am now. I feel much more deeply affected with things that others are going through ever more than I ever remember. I don't know if maybe I'm getting old or if it's because of what we've been through, but when you talk about I have not done counseling. We've joked before that you and I have like an hour conversation on the porch or 2 hours. That's kind of like therapy for us. But I love the one evening I went. Was it the evening you got locked out? I'm not sure there was a day. Well, anyways, I came over.
I think it was actually a different day.
It was a different day. Came over and the sun was here.
Yeah.
And we talked for so long. We had a time lapse. The moon, coming up. That was amazing.
Yeah.
But what were some ways or strategies and resources that helped you cope with that toll of caretaking during that time? Can you share some of that with me?
Yeah, historically, I've always been a person who I think I process things when I move. So but moderation is not my forte. So like in 12 and 13, I got back to running and raced 67 races in 16 months.
Wow.
And a lot of that I think was processing. I look back at that time too and think it was preparing me because it was I ended up with an overuse injury of my right foot and couldn't run starting about the first of the year of 14. But I think that the running I did in 12 and 13 kind of prepared me for what was coming after my parents got hit by the drunk driver. I think moving. I think I've had a horse. I used to go riding in the woods a lot, spending time.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I had a horse from 2000 to 2017. Spending time in the woods, just kind of away from things to process. Therapy. I'm a big believer in therapy. Everybody should be in therapy. Everybody should go to therapy once a week. World would be a better place. Spending time with friends. Spending time with Jay. I do find that you're much more intentional about your time when you've been through something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's interesting, too, because it's windows of time, right? Like, you guys are back to bickering. And I'm sure there's some days where you're like, why are we doing this?
Oh, yeah.
Haven't we learned that this is a waste of time and that life is much more precious than this? But we all do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's I was talking with Marv, 91-year-old, and just talking about just how fast time goes. I mean, it's I just turned 40 and thinking of friendships, relationships, or things that's been 20 years since I did, where that would sound like a lot, but it feels like yesterday, and I mean, it's already been since Tiff's diagnosis in January, it will be 3 years. And I can barely wrap my mind around that we're only a few months away from the three years. I mean, it I think maybe because it was such just a moment in time that is so scarring that it feels like yesterday,
So 3 years since her diagnosis, 3 years since Scott's major surgery, because his surgery was on a Wednesday, and I drove Jay home from Mayo on Saturday and woke up that Sunday morning to seeing Tiff's news on social media.
Yep.
So it was the same week.
That's right.
For both of them.
Yeah. I remember that. And you reached out right away, even with you were going there.
I did. I didn't reach you. You remembered it differently. I reached out actually to Noy.
Oh, that's
because
right.
I didn't want to reach out directly because I knew you guys' plates were full.
And Chris Cooley.
And Chris Cooley.
You reached out to a couple of recently.
Yeah, a couple of different people, and I just said, hey, like, I don't want to reach out to them directly, but just let them know that we're going to take care of that puppy.
Yeah.
And
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, both of them reached out and said, Sarah's trying to get a hold of you. Give her a call.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a crazy time. I mean, both of our lives kind of parallel at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about if someone's going through caretaking for someone else. What's your advice? The best advice you can tell them for? Because it's one thing I think that, in a way, I almost felt guilty that Tiffany was the sick one and I was the healthy one, and it took me a little while to deal with that. What's advice you'd give someone that's just starting a journey like that of caretaking, of how to deal with taking care of that person and taking care of themselves? What would be some advice you'd give for them?
Well, the first piece of advice I'd give anybody going through something medically is you need to be your own best advocate.
Yes.
And you need to know that just because you're going to a medical institution doesn't mean they're going to get it all right.
Yeah.
I also believe that no one should be hospitalized by themselves.
So
They
true.
have to have somebody present, whether you can be physically present or not. I know that some of the time that Tiff was hospitalized, you couldn't be physically present because it was COVID, and I don't know. There was a lot of things, a lot of moving parts. But Like if somebody's in for surgery and you can be physically present, they need somebody physically present to make sure that things are happening the way they're supposed to happen. Like the time Scott had his fingers amputated and told him that I can't remember what med it is that he's allergic to, and somehow that's what had been written into the orders, and that was kind of a funny story. Anyway, I got him the right meds.
I got a couple of those too.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, that's great advice. It's even during COVID, and I give this advice. I mean, Tiff had an iPad and I had an iPad.
Oh yeah.
And I took her everywhere. She was my virtual
remember
wife.
that,
You
yeah.
know, you didn't see me without her. You
Yeah.
know, and she would. You know, I'd force her to still talk to people. And
I remember that.
but you know, that way I could always advocate for her when she was very sick. Very similar situation. She was neutropenic. Her blood was trying to get her blood counts come back up.
People don't know what neutropenic is.
Neutropenic was her blood counts were so low that she didn't have an immune system, so they were down to nothing. We were trying to get her white blood cell count, her blood cell counts to come back up, and a nurse accidentally almost gave her a blood thinner, and it would have killed her, and thankfully we knew she was getting a blood booster shot, and she knew she got one shot. This lady went to give her another shot. She, well, what's this shot for? And I happened to catch Tiff ask that question, so I jumped on there and started barking at the lady, and the lady was very adamant that she was supposed to get that, and I said absolutely not. I want to, and advocated for it, and then came back. She goes, well, it was on the chart, now it's not. So it was, maybe it wasn't, but that little error there would have cost so much, and so that's great advice to make sure you have that person, advocating for that person, and really being on your P's and Q's and paying attention.
Well, and so being an advocate, the other piece you were asking me is that it's not all going to be sunshine and rainbows. Yeah. So with Scott's last surgery, he had to have a blood thinner shot every day for I forget how long, and I'd never given a shot before. And what I learned from that experience is there's no reason for Sarah Hamric to give a shot, because Sarah Hamric knows people that give shots.
Yeah.
And so if that ever happens again, I will reach out to someone else to have them come over and administer the shot.
It's funny. I learned that I'm actually not too bad at being, Tiff had to have an IV. And so I would have to give her IV and her line. I'd have to clean her port. She had a chest port. And I was so nervous that she was going to get an infection. She'd had infections in the hospital. But, I actually learned it was something I never in a million years wanted anything to do with, anything medical, never interested me, never thought that I would, not that I was a nurse or anything like that, but I didn't do too bad. She didn't get an infection. We stayed on top of it. It's the little things you take for granted too, because I remember her having that chest port. She just wanted to have that off so she could wear regular clothes, and then she'd have to be hooked up. It was magnesium transfusions that she was getting, or infusions that she was getting, and she'd have to be hooked up that thing for hours. So she'd have like this tether, to go to the bathroom or go anywhere. She had to pull this cart, and then even after, when that was out, there's so much time that she had to, couldn't get in water and all these different things. So we take for granted, those times, that now she's able to do all those things and move freely. So, well,
I do think so when you are a caregiver, people do want to help. And so if you need help, let them help.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
I'm never giving another shot in my life. Just saying.
So transition here. So tell me this: how do you stay inspired? Because you still have a lot going on. Jay's a junior, just finished up tennis season. Scott is now retired, but he's still a busy guy. And you've got Dog Zone, so you've got still a lot on your plate. Maybe less than before, but still a lot. How do you stay inspired? What keeps you going, waking up every day, and being Sarah?
That's a great question. And I'm not going to lie, I've been in a little bit of a funk. So I'm trying to find that right now.
Yep.
but you keep showing up for the people in your life, right? So like, I've got people, dogs on that are depending on me for income. And so you keep showing up and you keep doing it. And I mean, I just think life is like that, right? There's going to be highs and there's going to be lows. And sometimes if you're in a low, you got to cut yourself some slack and, I don't know, take a nap, do whatever it is you need to do until you've gotten back out of it. But stay inspired. Yeah, like you got to show up every day, even on the days when you don't want to. But just know that, like, it's going to turn. Like, if you're in a low, you're going to get back to a high, and you're going to, I mean, life just keeps on going. So it's not a very good answer, but it's real.
Well, it's good. And I asked you that because I truly believe when we first started this podcast, you know, it was on my heart. Tiff should be my first guest, and we talked, and I felt like, how did I get here to sitting here doing a podcast? Something I've always wanted to do. I was telling you, this is a passion project for me. I've joked from the beginning. I don't care if it's only my mom and Tiffany that watches it, you know. But we sat down after that first podcast, and I said, who should we have? You know, who are some of our guests? And Tiff, first person she said was you.
Aww.
And you've inspired us so much, and I think you've inspired so many people, you know, in the community. You know, we have a lot of mutual friends. I know a lot of people that you've affected in a positive way, knows your story, knows Scott's story, that followed your guys' journey, and you've inspired so many. So, you know, just want to give you that tidbit of how much you've inspired our lives and affected our lives in a positive way. So if anything, stay inspired by the inspiration that you already are. And we want to thank you for that. Let me ask you this, on your personal development in your journey of all the things you've been through, you know, what are some defining moments for you in going through everything you've went through in your life? What are some of those defining moments that feel like Sarah, who sits here today, the person that you are, give me 4 or 5 defining moments of your life that have created the person that sits here in front of me today?
4 or 5 defining moments. Well, one that you probably wouldn't even be aware of, my junior year in college, I studied in Spain for a year. And I think that was foundationally a lot of who I am, because that was scary. And that was before the internet, and FaceTime, and I got to call home for 10 minutes a day, or 10 minutes a month.
Wow.
Was all I got to call home because it was so expensive to call home. So I think that, like, but foundationally, because I lived in a dorm with 100 Spanish kids, it was sink or swim. I had to learn to speak Spanish. But it also opened my eyes to how big a place this world is. And I think that far too often people become a little closed-minded about things and not understanding that, like, we all experience different things. And yeah, so I think my year in Spain was one of them. I think when I graduated from undergrad, I'd applied to go to law school, and I made a wait list, and I didn't get in. I think that's one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. Because in hindsight, I don't think I would have made a good lawyer. I thought the law was about right and wrong, and it's not. That would be one. I think having Jay is the greatest thing I've ever done. He is the best of me. He's a far better human than I am. His level of empathy, his level of awareness about what's happening with people around him, his level of compassion and forgiveness towards people I have a lot to learn from that. Jay definitively. Meeting Scott, having someone in your life that you can depend on through thick and thin, and not that it's all sunshine and rainbows. but having a partner that's a really good human, and shows up for you every day, even on your bad days. I could wish nothing greater for Jay than he find a really good partner in life, whoever that may be. That's scary, right? Thinking about who your kids end up with.
Oh,
Oof.
that's one of the scariest things for me.
Super scary.
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, the drunk driver that hit my parents, I don't know that I'm ever going to get over that. And I've worked hard at it. But I carry that with me every day. That's a tough one. And then I think Scott's cancer, because it's been part of our life for 19 years.
Oh.
So, yeah. If I had to pick them some things, I'd pick those.
It's good.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep a positive mindset? You've had a lot go wrong, or a lot of tough situations. How do you keep? You've mentioned therapy, and
Yeah.
is there, keeping a positive mindset? Because I rarely see you not positive.
Mhm.
Or really almost never. I mean, I think we all have our days,
Sure.
but if anything, you've been an uplifting influence in my life,
Oh.
especially since our cancer diagnosis. You were always uplifting me, but also at the same time, one thing that I love about you, you're a phenomenal listener, where, I would just be venting about the hospital and the doctor, or in real estate, we have, all this and this and this, and you do a phenomenal job of listening. How do you maintain that positivity and that positive mindset?
Well, you work at it, right? It's a choice.
As a choice.
I'm a reader, so I do a lot of reading. I couldn't even begin to tell you how many, motivational, self-help kind of books I've read. A lot. And with a highlighter, and then sometimes I'll write things in the front cover that really struck me. But it's a choice, right? And the other thing, and I tell this to my employees at Dog Zone, that our clients at Dog Zone, we only get a moment with them every day, and we got to show up in that moment.
Yeah.
Right? So when you walk out that door to get somebody's dog, you got to show up in that moment, because that moment's about them and their dog and not about you. Right? So even if you've got stuff going on, you've got to, and so I guess between real estate and Dog Zone, that's it's not about me. It's about whoever I'm interacting with in that moment, and how I might be able to help them or show up for them or do something for them, right? I do think that if you show up for people over time, you're going to reap the benefits of that. But you got to play the long game. There's no quick fix for anything. So showing up for people.
That's good.
In their moment.
So looking back, what advice would you give your younger self? If you could go back right now and give your younger self advice, what advice would you give yourself for the future?
Oh, that's a good one.
Can you imagine Sarah now meeting young Sarah?
Mm-hmm. Well, so many things. So many things. I think the first would be time value of money. That, a dollar saved 30 years ago is much more than a dollar 30 years later.
Yeah.
And not that I was ever, I mean, I can thank Scott for that, because Scott was very fiscally minded. Read a lot of books about money in my 20s. What would I go back and tell Sarah? Probably spend time with your people. Whoever they are. Because they're going to be gone one day.
Yeah.
Yep. Spend time with your people.
It's good.
Mm-hmm. And if people aren't your people, don't spend time with them.
That's just as good.
Yep.
Well, I got one more question for you. What's next for Sarah Hamric? What's moving forward? What's next? What's the next season? What's the next chapter of life for you?
Well, the next hurdle will be helping Jay make good decisions about what comes next for him. He graduates in 18 months.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something, isn't it?
Man.
Yeah. So, navigating that and helping him through that, and then supporting him over the next years and what comes next for him. Being there for Jay, for sure. And Scott.
And after Jay goes, is he going to college? Is that the plan, do you think?
I think so. I don't think there's anything wrong with a gap year.
Yeah.
I think kids are, there's a tremendous amount of pressure being put on kids to make decisions that they're not really ready for. I mean, I went as an undeclared undergrad for 3 full years, came back from my year in Spain and had 110 credits and only took 128 to graduate, and literally sat down with a degree counselor and was like, what can I graduate with in 2 semesters? And it was Spanish with a business minor, because I needed to be done. I was done with that chapter. I think college is important, but I think it's more important for learning how to live life and interact with people and figure things out and problem solve. And I'm not as I think it's crazy for an 18-year-old kid to be like, this is what I'm going to do with my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. But supporting Jay through that process, for sure.
How long do you plan on having Dog Zone? Is that a long-term?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had originally said 10 years, that I would be a steward of the business for 10 years.
And you're already halfway.
Halfway.
Just boom.
More than halfway. Yeah, so I don't know. That'll be the next thing, though, right, is preparing all of Dog Zone and all of the people there, setting them up for success for when but I don't know. I mean, I guess I could be a part of Dog Zone for a long time. I don't know. It's fun.
That's awesome.
95% of the time I spend in that building is fun. 5% of the time I'm solving a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's fun. And it's been fun to provide a fun place for people to work. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been, yeah. I'm proud of that.
As you should be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast with me.
Yeah, it was fun.
It's been fun, and I appreciate it so much. I appreciate you and everything you do.
Do I get to see it before it goes public?
I don't know. Do we get to see it first, Connor? No, we can work that out for sure.
No, because I'll be like, don't publish that.
Then no, you don't get to see it. No, no, I appreciate it, and we're so thankful for you, my family. We owe you so much, and
You owe me nothing.
Well, we owe you a ton of gratitude, and
It's fine.
we appreciate you so much, and thank you so much. So
As we do you.
you guys have done so much inspiring us and sharing your story. Thank you for coming today and sharing your story. I truly believe my hopes for all of the shows that we do or episodes that we do is that someone connects with it, is inspired by it, or can relate to it and can find peace or something from it, take something from it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, I appreciate you sharing everything that you did and allowing that to take place. So thank you.
Thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Real with Ray podcast. Please like and subscribe, share it with a friend, and give us your feedback. What did you think of the podcast? If you've got any questions, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out and make sure you tune into the next episode. Let's go.